Greetings and welcome to everyone from the Great North Pagan Podcast. I am Thomas, the LionLord Punton, coming to you on Wednesday, February 20th, 2013. Hope you're doing well, Erin.
I am doing fabulous, thank you.
That's good. Well, we come to you today. This was coming off a special request of a friend of mine. After our last Pagan Pride Day last year, he had a little bit of falling out with his family after they learned out he was pagan. So after this person's special request, we are doing an episode about tips of coming out of the broom closet. And if you don't know what that means, it's basically telling your friends and your family that you're pagan or Wiccan. And coming out of a search of many sources, we came up with some information of some proper do's and don'ts of how you can try to successfully do that. Before we start, though, we wanted to do a little disclaimer that basically with...
Take into consideration your own family background. You know, I mean, if your family's scared of confrontation, maybe you find a way to ease into the process. If your family's fairly outgoing, maybe you won't have quite as many, issues that arise from telling your family. I mean, take into your own family backgrounds and histories and allow that to help you to come up with the proper process that works best for you. Because as generic as all of these are going to be, they're going to be generic, and they're not. I mean, so take what you need to adapt to what you need to make this as successful as it can be for you.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, my case of my family, especially with my mother's side, she studied a lot of our genealogy for our Celtic heritage, so when she found out that I was pagan, it was just natural, so she thought it was a proper idea, and the rest of my family just thought, well, so long as you're not causing trouble, so that's no big deal. But again, just take it as stride, and this is just some good, handy advice, take it well. First of all, consider how long you've been studying. Has it been long enough that you're sure that this path is for you, and has it become a very part of your life you feel compelled to share it with your loved ones? If it's not a huge part of your life, there might not be a reason for them to know. Spiritually, it's very personal and might not seem reason for sharing it. Consider why you want them to know. I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing. You don't want to go through all this trouble and then feel like, well, maybe this is not the belief for me. 2, make sure that you've amassed quite a bit of information that you'll be able to actually accurately answer any of the questions they might have. You'll get some random ones too, I bet, and I know I've been coming out of the broom closet myself, and I've hit questions too that I've barely been able to get the answer. Last thing you want is them to ask you something, and then you're like, I don't know. It's, in a sense, you're kind of selling yourself in most respects. And if for them to believe that this is the best path for you, you got to show to them that you know what you're doing. Next, deal with any stereotypes or misinformation that they might have towards pagans fairly soon, but don't turn into a pagans aren't this and this or pagans don't believe discussion. They'll figure out by what you are by your description, not your denials. Then make sure you're ready emotionally, financially, etc. There's a chance that something major might happen, like them disowning you. Can you handle that psychology? Do you have a place to go where you can afford your bills if this happens? I mean, you might think that this might not happen, but I've heard stories where for some families that it hits like a ton of bricks that it's like, I don't know you anymore, and you have to be prepared for that sort of scenario.
For the record, if you already live on your own, clearly you don't need to move and have your bills and stuff forwarded, but just in case.
Just in case, and especially if they might not talk to you anymore for a while, it might be just a way for them just to let them off the steam a bit.
Make sure you have a support network outside of your family. That might be the most helpful thing for you, because should your family not be as supportive right away or take it more personally than they should, at least you have that built support network to hold you up, to help you through. And they might be able to, even as your family, comes to terms, or however you want to phrase that, your friends and whoever you have built the support network can help you ease back in.
Yeah.
They ultimately can become your mediators too.
It doesn't hurt to have at least a little bit of backup, but so long as you're showing that you're the one that's making this point across, that's what's important. Then also make sure that you're in the right emotional state. Don't do this in anger or as revenge or as a means to get attention. I mean, basically, don't say that, you're doing this because you become pagan because maybe like a sibling did something that got himself some attention. That's one example. Offer to help to this as they appear to be taking it somewhat badly. Offer them books or other resources specifically for parents or relatives of Wiccans, pagans, and witches. There are several. You can also offer to discover the basics with them to do a ritual that they observe or take part, depending on their comfort level. And I mean, there's a lot of big, books out there. I mean, Uncle Buck's Blue Bible of Raymond Bradbury is a very good example of that, because that tells you just the major basics of Wicca that they would understand. And I know there's also some books that are handled for these sort of situations that they could read. I mean, I think that's the biggest weapon of all, is just information and knowledge. If they do take it badly, respect their feelings and your own. Don't be afraid to walk away if you get upset. Explain that you need time alone to think or cool down, and walk away before you say something you can make things worse, like bashing their own religion. Also, don't be willing to give them the same right. Don't push your case when they're clearly unreceptive. This goes for more than the coming out process. You might alienate them if you push it when they're clear that this is not something to approve of. I mean, it's basically like, if you feel like you're not, winning the battle, it doesn't hurt to retreat a little bit.
The whole concept of coming out of the broom closet stems from that. You would assume that all of us have been raised under another faith, or we wouldn't have to research or go out on our own in order to then come back and come out of the broom closet, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So, I personally was raised in a Lutheran Catholic background, and, I still take into account those feelings. I understand where my parents come from, and, I still respect their beliefs. I just choose not to believe them in the same way.
Exactly. So, I mean, basically, and that's the basic thing, is that, just because the fact that they're not agreeing with you does not mean don't shoot back at them either, because then that just puts you farther in the hole. Remember, they might be surprised or fearful for you. People in this state often say things they don't mean as a jerk reaction. Don't get overhurt by these. It also might be a case of ignorance of what they're saying. They may not realize it's hurtful. And that's common with what, if they've heard this stuff in the media or like any other medium that correlates with paganism or Wiccanism, that might be just a common reaction.
But that's where all of your knowledge in your own faith comes from, to help dispel their fears in being able to answer those types of questions. Yes. If you don't know enough about this, then it's hard for them to not be, it's hard for you to dispel that fear in them. So, I mean, definitely go back to the earlier tip of making sure that you know enough to be able to help your family through their fear.
Exactly. Don't plan on doing anything else shortly afterwards. It will take as long as it will take. Don't rush in by saying, "Hey, I'm a witch, and I know you're uber conservative Catholics, and all by that in the house, but deal with it. I have to go see a movie with Sissy now. Bye."
As entertaining as that would be for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It also opens a bigger can of worms.
Yeah, bigger cans of worms, because then they'll be just sitting there saying, "What just happened?" They gotta take this seriously.
Your life isn't a sitcom. Don't treat it as
That's a good way to put it. Mm-hmm. Seriously. This is paganism has taken a little bit better, but it's still not fully respected as it may be like compared to 30 years ago. So you still have to take it as a serious matter. And even if they don't kick you out, have an escape plan ready for the night. Some cash, some place to go. You might need some extra space, and that kind of corresponds with what we go back to, is that if you have other friends or other networking to go with, and again, also if you're living on your own, but especially if they still help you at some sort of fashion.
If you've made it this far and you're ready to come out to your family and you've chosen your pagan beliefs as that of your belief system for the rest of your days, make sure that you've taken the time to outreach to your community, make friends, go to, your meetups, and, that's how you're building your support network. And I guarantee you that several people throughout the community have been in your shoes and can offer help in, whether it was a positive coming out or, a not so positive one. That's what the community is for, to
Exactly.
be able to pick you up when you're falling.
There's a lot of community services that help with that. And I know, for example, that we have a pagan meetup, for example, here, but there's also other outreach programs and services that help for situations like this. And if you need to talk to someone, have someone handy, even if it's a complete stranger. I would say maybe get to know them, but if it's someone is like you said, someone that's been through this situation before, that will help. Realize that this might not be the only time you come out to them. Sometimes it doesn't take the first time, and you might have to repeat the process. Yeah, I know. Some people don't learn.
It's not even a learning thing. It's that they're not believing that this is your choice in your life.
Yeah.
And so you have to kind of drive the point home and saying, this is reality, this is my choice, and we need to figure out how to live in the same, live on the same page with this.
It's like first stage denial.
Yeah, exactly.
Coming out will not solve all your problems. It might not relieve any weight of feeling like you're hiding something or make you feel better. Improve your spiritual connection. Have realistic expectations. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is the goals. They want to know why you're doing this. What is the point behind this? And one of the major reasons is the spiritual matter. And I bet that they especially say that being Wiccan or paganist will help me, find myself. That's one good argument. They might think it's a phase, so be ready for that. They also might suggest counseling. This might help if it's family counseling and the counselor isn't overly another religion. Consider it. That's of course another thing too, especially with the fact that Wiccan paganism has been in the media. That some people might think that this is like a fad.
Well, and keep in mind that if your family's in denial, this is probably the first suggestion you're going to get.
Yeah.
Take it with a grain of salt. If you want to appease your family with counseling, make sure it's not religious-based counseling, and do talk it out. But at the same time, again, if you're at this step, you've probably already exhausted any other medium before you get to this step.
Oh, of course. Mm-hmm. Don't expect them to keep it secret from others. They'll need to talk to people too, and some people tell others about it in shock. Well, one example is there was a mother that was guilty of this one. After she called every family friend they had been in contact with, she had a bit of a breakdown at a family gathering for Christmas while offering this person some potatoes, shouting, "You don't need any of us Christmas food. You're a pagan. I almost forgot." So that everyone of the extended relatives heard. I mean, that's
an extreme case.
Yeah, that's an extreme case, but...
And maybe it does apply to you and your family members, and I'm sorry, and I hope that, it's something that, again, you would be able to work through.
And that's maybe something to bring up. Like, for example, when your discussion is saying, let's just kind of keep this low key for now. We can talk about it later if you need to listen.
But that's where the counselor and the support network, and again, any backup that you might have, because there are extreme people in all of our families, I'm sure. I know I could think of a couple in my family, because life is fun. So, should that type of incident happen, again, it's all in how you handle it too. Mm-hmm. If you lash out in a situation like that, Does that really help your cause? Probably not. If you are able to kind of take it, swallow it, maybe you say, okay, if this, maybe you leave. I mean, it sucks, but maybe you do, but that's where you have your support network. Should you go to counseling, you have that option. There are those things to help you through this process, because every family is different and everybody does react in different formats.
Exactly.
So you got to make sure that you're looking at things in all different possible avenues and areas, and that's what we're here to help with.
Of course. Mm-hmm. Be honest about your religion and your beliefs. You won't do them any favors by lying to them about it. And they might lose trust in you if they found out that you were being dishonest about it. I mean, don't stretch the truth. I mean, don't tell about stereotypes, but also don't start saying that you're actually like a high priest of a coven by this point. You're going to lose that, and here you aren't. For example, consider your work situation. Even if you're planning just to come out to a few people, what might happen if your boss accidentally found out? On this note, consider anyone you've already told. What would happen if Auntie Muriel finds out? What about Grandpa Steve? Are you going to be cut out of wills, publicly humiliated, etc.? I mean, that's this.
In other words, who does your family vent to if it's not you and your family? Keep in mind that if there are specific people that you're not ready to come out to, like you're only coming out to mom and dad and you don't want the extended family to come out, well, are your parents going to turn around and tell their extended family? Keep that into consideration too, that,
Because especially if Auntie Muriel happens to be the biggest gossip in the family.
Well, not even that so much that, sometimes my mom calls her sister in order to talk about certain things, but if I didn't want my aunt to know, well, too bad. So, because each family member has their own support network too, and that might include other members of your family. So, be considerate of that too, that, yes, you want to get it all out. Sometimes you want to do it in chunks, but, sometimes things happen and they're going to, things are going to happen a lot faster than maybe you're ready for. So prepare yourself in case that happens.
It's almost, I say selling, you got to sell yourself. It's almost like playing poker. You almost have to factor in every hand that any member of the family might have. Finally, think about how out you're going to be after this. Yes, you're tend to be out after telling your loved ones, but you're going to attend public events that could land you on the news, as we well enough saw with Pagan Pride Day. Are you going to host circles at home or share with your non-pagans? Are you going to discuss religious topics with non-pagans? Are you going to have a permanent altar or shrine up in your living space that others might see? This might influence when, where, how, or whom you come out. I mean, that's one thing that your family's going to wonder about when you have that, half your room is with that little temple and you have that statue to Dionysus out there. I mean, it's something you have to factor in that gets how open you're going to be. And that's something especially that we're going to come down later on in the Pagan podcast with if you're going to be solitary or actually join a coven. But just to kind of go out this, 30 years ago, coming out of a pagan or Wiccan was virtually unheard of. The only people who actually were pagan authors like Sybil Seek, Ray Buckland, Scott Cunningham, Isaac Bowen, Starhawk, these were the people who became leaders of the modern pagan movement, simply because they were the most visible. During the 1980s, more books became available on paganism and Wicca, and one of the topics covered nearly universally was the decision to come out or not. In subsequent decades, as the internet became a resource found in every household and coffee shop, pagan and Wicca networking sites have become readily available. Witchvox.com is a very good example of this. Earth-based spiritually became open to the masses, and more people realized it was okay to come out. And that was something that, if you watched the Pagan Pride video, I kind of talked about. The biggest thing about this is information, and especially when the fact that you can go to like Barnes & Noble or go on Wikipedia or Witchvox and find this information. That's one of your major tools of the trade. But, pick it the right time for this. But for now, we're going to take a break here, and you can listen to a nice song about Earth, Air, Fire, and Water. And when we come back, we are going to talk about the pros and cons cons about this, and also and some tips about coming directly for the family and friends. So we will be right back in just a moment.
The earth, the air, the fire, the water, return, 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 return. The earth, the air, the fire, the water, return, 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 return. Ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho. Ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho. The earth, the air, the fire, the water, return, 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 return. The earth, the air, the fire, the water, return, 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 return. Ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho. Ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho. The earth, the air, the fire, the water, return, 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 return. The earth, the air, the fire, the water, return, 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 return. Ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho. Ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho. The earth, the air, the fire, the water, return, 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 return. The earth, the air, the fire, the water, return, 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 return. Ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho. Ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho. The earth, the air, the fire, the water, return, 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 return. The earth, the air, the fire, the water, return, 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 return. Ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho. Ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho. The earth, the air, the fire, the water, return, 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 return. The earth, the air, the fire, the water, return, 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 return. Ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho. Ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho. The earth, the air, the fire, the water, return, 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 return. The earth, the air, the fire, the water, return, 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 return. Ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho. Ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho. The earth, the air, the fire, the water, return, 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 return. The earth, the air, the fire, the water, return, 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 return. Ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho. Ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah hey, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho, ah ho. Return, 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 return.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you liked that musical interlude. Well, now after listening to all these interesting points, now if you're considering about going ahead, here's some pros and cons for you to decide upon. Let's start with the pros first. There's several positive aspects about being pagan or Wiccan. For starters, it allows you the freedom of not hiding your true self. When you shared who you are with others, it makes it much easier and honest to be open about your things. You don't have to hide it, don't have to be in seclusion. When it comes to controversial issues, Wiccans and pagans are often at the forefront of writing letters to congresspeople, marching parades, and organizing protests. Just ask Selena Fox. I mean, she was the one in front to get the pentacle on military zones. By making your presence known as a pagan known, it allows like-minded people to find you and when they need your assistance.
So in other words, you become part of somebody else's support network.
Exactly.
You know, all of us had to start at some phase. We've created a support network amongst ourselves to allow others to use us as their support network, and so paying it forward is essentially a thought process.
Exactly. Your experiences will help someone else going through the same situation. There's also a sense of liberation when it comes for being out. Even if you're not of one of those in-your-face pagans and are simply out to friends and family, there is a freedom born of happiness. Once you're out, you don't have to worry about other people going to find out, because they've already made it known on your own terms. Basically, you'll be able to go to any events, you'll be able to do anything you want, and don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, you're a pagan?
Well, not anything you want, but other pagan people to be open with and not judge you for it.
Exactly. But here's the cons of it. For some people, the idea of coming out as pagan or Wiccan is terrifying. They may feel that they're being persecuted by local fundamentalist groups, or they'll be in danger of losing jobs, their children, etc. If this is a concern for you, you may be able to see about your rights as a pagan.
Okay.
I would suggest if you go back to our third episode when we talked to Tess Molgard, she talked about a lot of your rights as a pagan, your freedoms. She gave some really good advice there.
I was just going to offer that with so many strides moving forward, you know, to use another series, you know, another term of coming out, you know, for the gay, lesbian, GBA, you know, those guys, they, you know, so many steps are being made to go forward and to allow for that kind of openness. There isn't as much stigma nowadays as there once was. Now, that's not to say that there isn't any stigma at all. Unfortunately, that's human nature. You know, we fear what we don't understand. And I would say that, you know, just keep teaching everybody, or, you know, allowing people to understand an open mind. You may be taking that one step to help somebody else understand another part too. You know, acceptance is what we would all love to hope for in a much better world, but, you know, it is what it is. So, I mean, I guess as terrifying as it is, know that there are people out there fighting for your freedoms too.
Oh yes, I know of one friend. This person is pagan, but has been keeping it a secret because their other loved one is not, and was completely against it. And the biggest fear for this person is that they might lose their children if a divorce should happen. But this person has been also getting in touch, like for myself and some of the others that this person has worked with, as well as teaching their children about it, so to show that it's not as bad as it is. And it's, once again, taking it that one step at a time. And I've also known of some pagans that have been, staying in the shadows for that fear and concern that if they get out, that they could be persecuted badly. And that is just the common fear. And some of these pagans choose not to come out because of fears related to past history. There is sometimes the concern of outing oneself as pagan and Wiccan could lead up to a repeat of the burning times that existed in the Middle Ages. Not too long ago, last week in the media, there was this one lady, I think she was like 20 years old, that was over like on the other side of the world, Papua New Guinea, that she was burned because they accused her of being witchcraft. And there was a couple of places, I think, in Africa where that happened as well. There was a lady that she did tarot card readings, and she was being executed for that. So, I mean, we're not out of the woods per se in some parts of the world. I mean, in the United States it might be a little bit easier, but it's not perfect.
But the world isn't perfect, and as many cons as I'm sure we all personally can come up with, think about those pros and think about how, we are evolving into a much more open society. That's not to say, like I said, that reality doesn't exist and that there are always going to be people that just don't want to understand, are stuck in their own realities, and that's fine if that works for them. You can't change everyone, unfortunately, but focus on those pros, and every vote counts in an election, every thought counts for something, and you're choosing to move forward and be true to yourself, and you're helping to support the next person by helping them understand from your perspective of what you went through. Again, it's paying it forward, and with every positive step, it's one more positive step forward.
Exactly. You think, look again at Selena Fox. If she let herself being pushed around by some people that didn't agree with what she would, do you think she would be out of where she is today? No. She took a stand. And if you firmly believe that this is the path you wish to choose for, by all means, stand with it. Ultimately, the decision to come out is one that stands with some thought and possibly some clever planning as well, depending on how you believe you will be received. You may be pleasantly surprised to find support and friendship in places that you didn't expect. It's possible that your dear old mom and dad will embrace your newfound spirituality rather than chastise you for it. My parents can be a good example for that. Talk to people who are out of the broom closet and ask for them advice on how to talk to their families and friends about who they are. Be sure to never, ever out someone else without their permission. It's a personal choice, and while you're more than welcome to tell people what you believe without processing, of course, you're not welcome to announce that other people are pagan or Wiccan unless they're already out. That's something, especially with this podcast, that we've had to learn as well, that especially when we've recorded live events, that of course some people do not want to be seen because they're still working on coming out of the broom closet. Religion and spirituality is a private and personal thing, no matter who you are. Coming out of the broom closet is a choice for what you can make in your own yourself. It's something that you can choose to do if the time is right for you or not. Now, there's first of all coming out of the family. As we work on these tips, we can now divide them out. You're the one that comes out of your family best, so you may be able to gauge how you're going to react. Is there a chance you could cause a lot of family discord by coming out? Will your spouse threaten to divorce you? Could you be kicked out of your house? Will your family dinner become an opportunity for siblings to throw things at you and scream that you're a sinner? It's possible your kids might get picked on at school if words come out if you're pagan. These are possible results of coming out of the broom closet, so consider them carefully and weigh against your reasons for coming out in the first place.
Consider them, but don't let them hinder anything.
Exactly. Just, let's play that card that's possible. If you decided that coming out is the right choice for you, it's an obvious place to start out at home, where the people that you love and care about for you. The reason for this is twofold. One, families tend to be more expecting than strangers, and two, how would you like it if mom and dad or your wife found out from someone other than you that you're Wiccan?
Or pagan.
And that was kind of what the inspiration of the request came from doing this episode, was that the person who requested it had their family learn from another source. So first let them know that it's something really important you need to discuss with them. Try to plan a time when there's no distractions and plan ahead so no one feels like you're trying to corner them or surprise them. Don't bring up the subject when you're half a dozen Wiccan friends sitting on the porch, or your family members will feel ambushed, and there's not a good way to start the conversation. Now, that's not to say you can't bring maybe one friend for support, but
or bring your friends over and just choose not to bring it up at that point. That's
Yeah.
not to say that you shouldn't be ashamed, or maybe your friends aren't ashamed that they're Wiccan or whatever. But if you know that your family's still not quite there, just ask respectfully that maybe it not be something that's crammed down their throat, for instance. Ease them in.
Exactly. Before you actually have the big conversation, think about what you're going to say. As silly as this sounds, know what you believe. After all, if your family members ask questions, you'll be better to ask them if you want to be taken seriously. Make sure you're done your homework, like we mentioned. They may want to know what you believe about God, reincarnation, spell work, or even if you hate Christianity now that you're Wiccan or pagan. Have an honest answer ready. I mean, that's one thing for myself is that, even despite the fact that I'm pagan, I still have respect for Christianity. That's a well-enough belief.
I grew up in a very eclectic religious family. I have respect for all religions, even if they don't even apply to my family. I have several friends from all different walks of life. And you know what, if nothing else, it allows for some lively discussions, but I never, ever hold that against somebody. That's your belief is your belief, and that is something that you should be proud of. Don't let anybody ever tell you different.
Exactly. When you sit down and finally hear to have the talk, focus on remaining calm. Depending on how conservative or religious your family members are, there's a possibility they might fly off the handle. They're entitled to, after all. You just told them something they weren't expecting, and so the natural reaction is to such a situation can be shock and anger for some people. No matter how much they yell, keep yourself from responding the same way. Keep your voice down. This will do two things. First, it will show them you're mature, and secondly, it will force them to stop yelling in order to hear what you have to say. Don't make it into a yelling match or something like you would see in like one of those debates on TV. If you try to remain professional about it, then they will see that, and then maybe they'll see that this belief has some merit.
No, not everybody's perfect.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but it is more respectable or easy to respect. If you yourself can stay calm, it can hopefully, maybe they're all riled up at that time, but maybe tomorrow they can look back on it, calm down a little bit, and realize that this is something serious for you. And, it may not all happen all in one day, but, the more calm and collected you are, the easier it will be for them to come around.
Exactly. Make sure you focus on what your belief system is rather than what it isn't. If you start the conversation with, now, it's not devil worship, then all everyone is going to hear is the devil part. This kind of goes back to how you sell yourself. And then, because if you start telling about the devil part, they're going to start to worry. You may even want to recommend a book for your parents to read so that they understand that Wicca and paganism is a little better. One book aimed specifically for Christian parents of teens is When Someone You Love is Wiccan. It does include a few sweeping generalizations, but on the whole provides a useful, positive Q&A format for people who are concerned about the new spiritual path. You might even want to print out this article and have it handy for them, for concerned parents. And you can find these both online, and we'll provide links. That much like with movies and televisions have frequently asked questions lists, pagan and Wiccanism have that as well. The bottom line is that with your family, there needs to be still the same happy and well-adjusted person you were yesterday. Show by the way you behave and deduct yourself that you're still a good person, despite the fact you may have a different spiritual path than anyone else in the house. But, do factor in, it's not always going to fall perfectly, and it's not the end of the world. So long as you're happy with what you're believing in, that's the main thing. And then you try to make an effort to reach well with your family. So now we've got the family, now let's see about coming out with the friends. They can be almost trickier than coming out with the family because a family member can't just drop you like a hot potato if they disagree with your choices. A friend can, although one could, argue that someone who does not so regularly that a good friend would in the first place. However, your friends may have very different religious viewpoints from you. Understand that could happen. Once you start to come out with your family, you can come out with your friends gradually. You might want to start out wearing a piece of religious jewelry and seeing who notices it. I think, for example, for me, I always wear a pentacle ring. When they ask what it is, you can explain, this is simple my faith, and it means whatever. For teens, it's particular, and this is a much easier method than standing up in the lunchroom table and yelling, "Hey everyone, listen up! I'm pagan now!" I'd recommend not taking the big books on paganism and magic to school with you. There's a time and place for reading about paganism or Wicca, but skill isn't it. I I've worn my pentacle necklace now and then, and I even had it where I've went to like a fast food place and I have had a cashier behind the counter ask me what the symbol is, and I'll explain what it is, and I just basic education of it. But yeah, when it comes to school, that might be careful of it. I mean, I've heard stories, especially like from one game reviewer, that he was almost threatened to be expelled because he brought his D&D books to school. Think about what it is if you brought books about paganism. You might find that some of your friends are confused by this choice you made. They may feel hurt that you haven't talked to them about it before, or even feel a little betrayed that you couldn't confide in them. The best thing you do is reassure them that you're telling them now because you do value your friendship. If you have a friend who is particularly religious, one you've met in a religious context, such as a church youth group, for example, this could be even more awkward. Be sure you answer any questions they have, and make sure you understand that just because you're no longer part of their religion doesn't mean you no longer want to be friends with them. If you're really lucky, eventually they'll come around and be happy that you're happy. I've had this happen a couple times with friends that I had online. One of them especially, but at the time it was when I was just starting to find out about Wicca. So I didn't have much knowledge to back it up, so this friend who was actually a big-time Christian was pretty much nailing me down on every single point about everything that that was against paganism. And another friend of mine, though, that I had gotten in touch with again, I did get meeting with her later on, a few years later down the road, and explain to her about it. And we're still friends online. It's all over Facebook, so it shows that a good education can go a long way.
I've been blessed to surround myself with people from all different walks of life, and I embrace all those differences. And I think in some avenues, and if you were to talk to some of my friends, that it's helped them too be a little bit more open-minded. I love to argue all sides of any issue. I don't particularly bring up religion as a topic, but if it is brought up, we kind of let the conversation flow and let it be what it needs to be. But so many more people are tolerant or are accepting or are way more open-minded these days too. And hopefully you're blessed with a circle like that, like I am, and I think every day for all of the people in my life. And there are still a few that have their particular points of view, and sometimes it's fun just to argue because it gets them upset. But I still love them all dearly, and even if a few of them were to look at me different, that's their choice, and I don't hold it against them. Sometimes you do that. There might be avenues where you just grow apart, but if they're really your friends, you'll grow back together. It's just surround yourself with good people.
Exactly.
That helps immensely.
The great thing about really good friends is that they probably already figured out, and we're just waiting for you to speak up. If you know well enough, chances are good that they're not really coming out to them. They're just simply confirming what they already expected. And probably just like the age-old sitcom advice is, if they don't accept you, maybe they weren't really good friends to begin with. I mean, the friends are those that are with you, that support you. They're with you through the right and wrong.
Or it's your time to grow apart. It is okay to accept that a friendship has run its course and you're moving in different directions. That's happened to me a few times, and as painful as it may be at the time to come to that conclusion, if you take a look at it and take a step back and realize that, it's okay for some friendships to run their courses. Because you can never have too many friends. I thoroughly believe that. And, it allows for a little bit, for maybe one extra person to make that footprint on your heart, or however you want to phrase that. So, it's definitely, it's okay.
Exactly. Now, finally, we'll end out about coming out at work. While you're certainly protected against the religious discrimination at work thanks to the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the fact is that some people may experience some retaliation if they come out at work. It's going to depend on where you work and what sort of people you work with, and whether or not there's anyone who would like to see you fired. That being said, the workplace is not really an appropriate place for discussions on religion. Your spirituality is a private and personal, and while there's nothing wrong with wearing a crystal chain around your neck, You probably will draw the line having a giant pentacle hanging over your desk. There's very little benefit to actually coming out at work. Understand that if you're coming out to your friends and family, there's a possibility that someone at work will find it out anyway. If that happens, you're pressured into discussing your spirituality at work, or you're harassed in any sort of way, talk to your supervisor. You may also want to look into retaining an attorney. Maybe with that part, if it gets really...
I would say if things are escalated to that level, by all means, take whatever safety precautions you need to do. And yes, it is contingent on the type of environment you work in and your job and stuff. But I know for as many avenues as I've had as far as jobs, I come from a mainly retail background, but I do work in an office now. And it's not exactly something that somebody just brings up, So I guess proceed with caution. But at the same time, don't open a door that doesn't need to be opened to. And that's not to say you shouldn't be proud of who you are. That's, but again, only if it escalates to that type of level, make sure that you do have safety precautions.
Exactly.
I would hope it doesn't get to that level.
I'd hope not. Well, I hope if you're listening to this and you're going to want to think about coming out of the broom closet, this has give you some insights. And hopefully they'll lead you to make the right choice. But of course, that choice is yours. So we will leave you today on that. So I hope it all goes well for you, and that this is the right path for you. So with this being... Alright, then just to close out, then basically the upcoming events is we have Pagonicon that's happening in Twin Cities the 15th through the 17th March. We're planning to have a vlog for that, so stay tuned for that. And do, if you're in the Twin Cities areas, do join that, because that is a very wonderful event. By the end of the week, also there should be a vlog coming up. I went to a couple of the Idle No More events. It was a Native American movement. Deb hosted those. Should be very interesting to watch. That's been coming up.
Awesome. And please do join us for our next episode, which will be available on March 6th, where we will, as kind of a continuation of today's topic, we'll be interviewing Ernie Johnson and Dee Johnson on the topic of living with a pagan spouse. Ernie is not specifically pagan, and Dee is very well known in the pagan community, and how they've been able to use that to their advantages, I guess. So it should be a very fun interview, as these are two of our very closest friends.
Oh, yeah.
So we look forward to that. So anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day, weekend.
Yes, so this has been Thomas Punton
And Erin Lecy.
Merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. Blessed be.